For the past few weeks, my daughter has been having nightmares about her father. I could have anticipated something like this. She was only 3 when he died, but she remembers. Of course, she remembers. I see her father in all the time. The way her dark eyelashes frame those prismatic hazel eyes. The way her whole face lights up when she laughs. She reminds me of David every day. God, I miss him. It's been almost a year and I still can't fall asleep without his old t-shirt of his that I keep. I swear it still has his smell. My David, the light of my life. I was never a happy person before David. My mother was a heroin addict, by turns of abuse and neglect until the day CPS carried me out of the only home I have ever known, and dispositioned me with a foster family. Still though, I missed her. Months later, my foster mother, sneering and displeased that I seemed ungrateful after the 10th time that day I asked about my mom, informed me that she had OD'd the same night that I was taken away. I was never going to see her again. I cried, and CPS put me in a new home. Eventually, I barely finished high school before launching into a series of mind-numbing, dead-end jobs that barely paid the bills. And then I met David. It couldn't have been more cliché. I started frequenting this little coffee shop where he spent a lot of time. He'd sit in the same overstuffed armchair by the window every morning, with a cappuccino and the Washington Post. Sometimes he'd stop by in the afternoons for an almond croissant, and sometimes he wouldn't. I noticed him immediately. On 5 different occasions, I attempted to strike up a conversation. A remark about the weather, a comment on the newspaper article he was reading. Silly little bits of small talk here and there that I'd thought as casually flirtatious. Well, David, oblivious, didn't give me a second thought. I even bought his cappuccino once, after noticing him a few places behind me in line. But he was running late that day and left without even reading his newspaper. In the beginning, we were star-crossed, if only as a result of his classically masculine inattention to the world around him. He did, of course, eventually notice me, and we had our first date in that coffee shop. He sat in his armchair, and I sat across from him in its twin. He was shy and nervous in the most adorable way. He'd look up at me with those hazel eyes. I'd smile at him, and he'd sheepishly look away. My heart aches to remember that sweet sunny morning. My David, the light of my life. It was after that he moved away. My friends told me I was being melodramatic about it. But the truth was that even after only one date, I just knew that there was something real, something deep and strong and right about the two of us together. Sometimes, though, life just gets in the way. When I moved to his new city and saw him at a party, I found out that he was married, and honestly, I was heartbroken. Silly, I know. We'd still only been on that one date, but the only way I can think to explain it is that when you meet someone, the one, you just know. I'm not proud of what happened next, but ultimately, I think it was just fate. I ran into David at the local club, where he and his friends were out on a boys' night, and he drank a little too much and ended up back in my apartment. We started seeing each other then, nearly every day. A clandestine encounter in the stairwell of his office building, a stolen train ride together on his way home from work. Sometimes I'd sit across the row from him, stealing glances, smiles. It didn't even matter how or when or where. Just being together was enough. It was 2 months after that, first night in my apartment, that I confirmed it. I was pregnant. We met in front of his house. He told his wife he was taking out the trash, and I shared the news through tears of joy. He started crying too then. I knew he wanted to leave her, but things were difficult, complicated. The night Heather was born, though, everything suddenly became simple. There she was, our little hazel-eyed angel, and I knew everything would be perfect. But it wasn't. It was never perfect. Not even for a day. David, as much as I knew he loved me, just wouldn't leave her. For 3 full years, I deluded myself into thinking that he would. But I was just lying to myself. One night, as I sat crying in front of his house, begging him to come outside, he had the audacity to call the police on me for stalking of all things. He told me I was crazy, that he'd never loved me. He told me he didn't even remember the night we slept together, that he didn't think he had that much alcohol, that something must have been wrong with his drink. That was the night I knew it was truly over for us. David was the light of my life, yes, but it had simply grown too complicated. I didn't want to kill him, but what else was I supposed to do? He really truly was never going to leave her. I shouldn't have done it in front of Heather, though. That was my mistake. You see, I thought she was too young to remember. But I was wrong. She remembers. Oh, Heather, my sweet, sweet girl. The light of my life.